Are you recording?
I am now.
Just got the notice. Thank you very much, Frank. So welcome to the March 2022 meeting of the Central Florida Astronomical Society. Welcome back this month. And at the risk of jinxing it, this will be our last virtual only meeting. Watch your inbox for a link to our new reservation system. We have about 150 members and we cannot fit 150 people in the planetarium. It's highly unlikely that everyone will show up at our first meeting. But you know what they say about assumptions. So we're not going to assume. We'll have a reservation system. If we overflow the planetarium, we will have an overflow room and we will figure it out ahead of time. So the board has a couple of contingency plans on that. But it's a great way to find out who's coming and to make sure if you reserve your spot early that that you get into the planetarium, so there we go. So tonight's program, after my preliminary announcement and events, John Pinto is going to introduce our guest speaker, Ken Graun, who is well known by some of our members here already. I'm going to present our astrophoto showcase from members who've done astrophotography this month. John Pinto is going to talk about night sky events this month. I'm going to spend just a minute on the moon. And then Mauricio, who is our outreach chair, is going to talk about things we've been doing this month and things that are coming up. So typical standard reminders, in case you're watching this on YouTube or later. Official CFAS discussions are through Groups.io. We do have a Facebook page, but everything doesn't get necessarily updated on Facebook. Our official, hey, let's yell at each other stuff comes from Groups.io. And if you need to get a specific email from the board, it will usually come from Sharife's email, or in this case, this month from my email. If you want to know how to join CFAS, because you're watching this later recorded, we have a website, cfas.org, award-winning website, I will note, second place, that's still award-winning in Astronomical League design contest. Come there and join. Also there, we have our public, open to the public events on the calendar is also published on that website. Our chair, Sharife, is our publicity chair. She's always looking for astrophotos. It doesn't have to be astrophotos. It can be any photo from CFAS events. You just take an embarrassing picture of your buddy looking through a telescope, send it to Sharife. She can make them famous. So we want to do that. Outreach, if you do any kind of outreach or sharing, even if it's an unofficial, not necessarily a CFAS event, you are a CFAS member and it counts. NASA Night Sky Network wants to know how many people are doing outreach. It's nice to keep track of these things just to see how much outreach is going on in the country. So let Mauricio know at outreach@cfas.org, even if you do a little sidewalk thing in the front of your house on the weekend. And with all that boring stuff out of the way, it is showtime. I'm going to let John Pinto introduce our guest speaker, who is free to steal the screen sharing away from me as soon as he wants.
All right. Well, I want to welcome Ken. He has been here before, and we welcome him back. Ken and I go back to 2006 when he came out with an excellent book, What's Out Tonight, which for me covers everything that's going to happen in the sky up through 2050. So probably long after I'm gone. And it was exactly what I needed, and I use it a lot. I really wanted Ken to come back because he's recently published a Sky Atlas, and I'm really looking forward to him talking about that. And Ken's really famous for his Planispheres. You can pretty much find them almost any Barnes & Noble, any Amazon site. And I'm sure Ken's going to talk to us a little bit about how he got into that. Ken's also a teacher at a local college. And Ken, I'm going to let you take it from there.
Okay, thank you, John. I appreciate it. Now, is my screen going to come up?
I just have to share.
Okay. I should hit share here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here it is. Okay, there it is. Okay, and everyone can see that? It says making star charts.
You're good.
How does it even happen? Okay, good. No, thanks, John. It's amazing how the years go by. You said it was 2006. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about my books, Making Star Charts, and towards the end, I'll talk more about the Star Atlas. And as I say here, how does it even happen? And so a large part of this talk will be sort of about my life. Normally, I don't like to really talk about myself. I think most people are that way. But how does someone get to the point where they're either writing books and or making star charts? And basically, you have to sort of follow someone's life a little bit to see where to see that path. So I live right outside Tucson. I've been here for over 30 years, and I'm actually in a small community called Vail, Arizona. But it's literally, I'm 20 minutes from downtown Tucson. Okay, just real quick, the image, this puzzle image, I've had this since I was a teenager. This is, like a 16th or 17th century, maybe even 15th century drawing of the southern hemisphere, and it still hangs. I haven't lost it. It actually hangs on my wall in the house. So who knows? Maybe this was a little bit of a precursor to what I was going to be doing. Okay, as I'll try not to read what I've written, but I'm a relatively old guy, so it happens as the years go by. I do kid that I'm basically 54, and that means I've been counting backwards since I got to 60. When I tell my mother, and unfortunately she has passed, when I would tell her that I'm like 55 or 56, she always got mad at me. But it's just something that happens. But as I say here, I never would have imagined that I would have written some books, beginning books for amateur astronomers, and produced a whole bunch of star charts. So it's something that sort of slowly but surely happened. And I want to do a general thanks. Just because I've maybe written a few books and produced some star charts, I might be slightly better known than others. But I'll tell you, it's you guys, your club members. You are constantly, contributing to promoting astronomy and basically science. And I have to commend you. The work. It's not just your club. It's done all through the U.S. But thank you for sharing astronomy and science. You really are the ones who are promoting this beautiful and wonderful science. Okay, when did it all start for me? And I think this a little bit of this story is very similar to a lot of you. My very first memory of space and astronomy was, I think it was right around third grade. I was on a bus. There was a friend right next to me, and we were excitedly talking about one of the many rocket launches that was happening in the 60s. That's, for whatever it was, that just galvanized me to astronomy, something that exists to this very day. But in junior high, I just read everything I could on astronomy. I started in grinding on a 6-inch mirror. I wasn't able to complete it at that time. I actually completed it probably about 15 years or so ago, and also made a couple other reflectors. But yes, so things started to kick in high gear in junior high. Then where I lived, I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So where I lived, the high school that I went to was a normal high school, but there was another high school about equal distance from where we lived. And that high school, one had an actual planetarium that was built right in. And there was an instructor that taught an astronomy course. So I was able to, actually, my dad was very helpful. He was able to get me a transfer to Madison High. So not only did I take that astronomy course from that instructor, but basically he and I worked on making a 4x5 foot plexiglass sundial. He actually provided the money, and I did all the work. So I made a 4x5 foot sundial that got placed or hung in the courtyard of the school. So I was totally enmeshed, with with astronomy. You know, I loved it. And my ideal goal was to become an astronomer. So I attended after high school, the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. I ended up getting a bachelor's in applied math and in physics. I didn't do as well as I would have liked. Overall, my grades were not great. They were probably about C+, B minus. So I really personally did not feel like that I could go on to graduate school. And now I realize that if the school, if UWM, if the advisors had been more active, you know, with their students, like with me, I probably would have done better, and I probably maybe would have directly gone on to a graduate school. But those things didn't happen, and it's okay. It's okay because things that, you know, and things worked out. It took a while, but they worked out. Okay. So after my bachelor's, I joined the U.S. Navy as a supply corps officer. I bought a little Celestron 3-inch maxi tub that I had with me. I didn't get to use it too much, but I had it with me. And that aircraft carrier you see, that's the 68. That's the USS Nimitz, and that's the ship I spent about 2.5 years on. So just real quick, I was on there. If you're old enough, you will remember the Iranian hostage crisis and the helicopters. There was a bunch of helicopters that flew into Iran trying to rescue the hostages. So I was on the ship. We had those helicopters. They flew off of our ship. So I was on it during that time. So that was the most excitement that actually happened. Okay, and as I say here, the Navy wasn't for me. You know, I learned a lot. I grew up a lot. But you know, it just didn't really mesh with my personality, and so I got out after my 4 years, and unfortunately, that was the Jimmy Carter recession. And again, if you're old enough to remember that, that was a pretty bad recession. Jobs dried up. When I got out, I had a hard time finding employment. In fact, if I would have gotten out just 6 months earlier, I could have found employment with probably like a larger company. But when I got out, all the larger companies had just they've closed their doors to employment. So I just got sort of a lucky weird break. I ended up in some ways staying with the U.S. Navy as a civilian, and I was a coordinator for a drug and alcohol education program because at that time, the U.S. Navy had a pretty big education program with drug and alcohol. And I first supervised that program in Meridian, Mississippi, which was my last duty station. That was a naval air station. And then finally, with that program, I was able to do the same in Dunoon, Scotland. So I got to spend about 2 years in Dunoon, Scotland. And so that was a very nice addition, you know, to what was happening in my life, being able to sort of work overseas and to being able to mostly understand the people when they spoke too, mostly, not entirely. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, yeah, hold on. Okay, yeah, I missed it jumped. Let me just make sure. Okay, it jumped. I think I pressed the button twice. So what I did is after I got out of that, or after I really quit the drug and alcohol education program, I went on to graduate school. I got a master's in counseling psychology. Yes, I know it's sort of a jump going from applied math and physics to counseling psychology. Obviously, I had an interest, or I was developing an interest in psychology at that time. But and this is where things really pushed forward to how I got into, you know, doing books and things of that nature. So in graduate school, like in psychology, you got to write papers for almost every class. And at that time, the Microsoft DOS was just available for people, you know, to basically buy a computer with it on. But I discovered that I for the first semester I had someone type up my papers, that I had to write, and I did not like the lack of control, and I always wanted to make changes on my papers to the last minute. So I bought one of the first Macintosh computers. The first was the 128K. When I bought mine, the 512K came out. I bought that in a printer. And I was literally running circles around those who had the MS-DOS machines. And as I say here, because I could integrate tables and images within my Word document, and the MS-DOS people could not do that at all. In fact, I didn't know right away, but a lot of my professors were showing my paper. They didn't say, look what this guy did. I didn't find that out until later. So it was making an impression. So in essence, I was an early an early foray for myself into desktop publishing. So just some graphics here is, this is what the original Macs look like. I started with the 512K. As I say here, Microsoft was big at that time. And the reason why Microsoft was bigger, well, they came out a little bit earlier, but there was also many more programs that you could get on the DOS platform compared to the Mac. Microsoft at that time was actually belittling the Mac, calling it a toy. But as I say here in this last thing, however, the Mac did pave the way to our present operating system, our interface, and our programs and our apps. So. Okay, I came to Tucson to actually complete my counseling internship. So if you get a master's degree, you do have to do some sort of counseling internship. And at that time, I did not actually realize, or I didn't know, that Tucson was considered, and it sort of still is, the astronomy capital of the world. And one of the reasons why it was considered that is because the University of Arizona, which is here in Tucson, has a very big astronomy department, but also we have lots of mountains around here. Just about on every mountaintop, there is a major observatory. So, and I did not, I ended up not going into counseling, but for various reasons, I opened up a small one-man business in desktop publishing. So I took on projects such as car sale ads, newsletters, books, etc. So I became very proficient at using freehand programs like Freehand, PageMaker, Quark, and many other programs. And I have that here. Is basically the two type of programs that I used the most were vector-based programs. The original one was McDraw. Freehand came out, and that was the program that I had pretty much mastered. Freehand is very similar to Adobe Illustrator. The company Adobe eventually bought Freehand, and Freehand pretty much is not pretty much, but they made it disappear. They made it so nowadays, if I have to do any type of creating pages and things, I have to work with Adobe Illustrator, and I use an older version. So, and with the page layout programs, I think everyone has heard of PageMaker, but Quark Express came out, and so I'm very versed with using Quark. So between Freehand and Quark Express, I was able to actually do a lot. This right here, it's sort of a colorful ad. I did a lot of ads, and this is actually an insert flyer for budget car sales. This is how I got good at using a program like Freehand. So I got good at being able to just manipulate text and objects and in almost any way that you can think of. And it was because that was my job. I built up these ads and when you do them week after week, you get good at using these programs. So what happened to me is I had my business. I got proficient at Freehand, creating ads, proficient using Quark Express, creating books and other things. So right around the age of 40, and as you know, I am a little bit older than 40 now, I actually had a midlife crisis. And basically I just felt like I needed to do more. I needed to contribute more in some way. And unfortunately, my astronomy was sort of on hold, except for a few odds and ends here and now, here and then, or back then, back there. So it just hit me one day. I says, I need to go back to my first love. I never became an astronomer, but maybe I can contribute. And so I wrote my first book. John mentioned that, What's Out Tonight. Basically, it was a 50-year field guide. And What's Out Tonight came out right around the year 2000. I think it came out the year before. But what I also did, though, is I actually set myself up as an actual book publishing company. So I am an official publisher, I'll say like a registered publisher. There's, there's a way that you can do that. So after What's Out Tonight came out, probably within a span of several years, I wrote 6 books on astronomy, and basically beginning books. And 3 of them were children's books, and I have images of them here. And my little dog is come here, Jill. That's one of the hazards of talking at home. These are the books that I've read. The Celestial Atlas in the lower right-hand corner, I'll talk a little bit about that later. I'm not counting that as one of the 6, and that came out a couple of years ago. But you see Our Earth and the Solar System, Our Constellation and Their Stars. Those were my 3 kids' books. The What's Out Tonight was that was my very first book that got me started. After that, Touring the Universe was sort of a generalized book, on for amateurs to get started, and it had stuff about things that were happening in the night sky through 2017. The book that actually I sold out relatively quickly was The Next Step. And I had given you a talk. I have to admit, it wasn't a very good talk on Messier. I think it was last year or a year and a half ago. And that book did actually fairly well. That's the book I'm proudest of. It's out of print. I was going to say something. I'm trying to think. But yeah, I would say Teleview. Teleview bought a lot of those, and they sent them to people who registered their telescopes. So if you registered your telescope with Teleview, they sent you a free copy of The Next Step. And the reason why they sent The Next Step out is because I used the Teleview 101 to take photos on film of all the Messier objects. So the book, just about, all the Messier objects, the photos in the book were done with the Teleview. So it helped sort of promote, their scopes. One thing that I did learn that you might want to know, it seems like, Teleview is just selling scopes left and right, but they don't actually sell that many. They don't sell as many as what you would actually think. And I knew that by how many books they were requesting, versus how many they were probably, sending out for people who turned in their registration. So, okay. Now, as I say here, I never thought about publishing star charts, but some of you might know of Starizona. Starizona is a telescope shop here in Tucson, Arizona. It's owned by Dean Koenig. And Starizona has become fairly known for its hyperstar. And the hyperstar is a lens gizmo, I'll just call it that you put on the front of like a C8, like an 8-inch SCT, although they make them for all the different sizes. And so it turns your what is, I think the SCTs, I can't remember now, they're like F12, F16, something like that, but it turns it into an F2 system. And so you can get some nice wide angle images. But Dean and I I've known him almost since he started up Starizona. And he was the one that suggested I should make a big planisphere. So, and I was sort of hesitant with it. I was thinking of maybe just sticking with the books, but I'm glad he sort of pushed me in that direction, because The Planispheres sell, consistently, where books don't sell as consistently. And so Dean wrote me in a little bit with David Levy, putting his name on the Planispheres. And I had David's name on it for several years. It was not helping the sales at all because beginners don't know who David Levy is. And if none of you know who David Levy is, he is a very famous amateur astronomer. He's discovered a lot of comets, and maybe even more than Messier discovered. But he was also, all of you know about the Shoemaker-Levy comet that hit Jupiter. So he was a co-discoverer of that comet, and that was big news when that comet had basically hit Jupiter. Okay, yeah, and just as a plug for Starzona, on the left we have the hyperstar. On the right, below the red CCD or CMOS camera is a hyperstar attached to a celestron, and I think that might be an 8-inch or a 10-inch. I'm not too sure what size that scope is. But Dean is I'll tell you, he's an incredible guy, and he helps people. He's honest, and I've really enjoyed his friendship, his professionalism, and throughout the years. So I've been fortunate to have him as a friend. So living in Arizona has some advantages. It is the astronomy capital of the world. I don't know if that's a real advantage. Starzona and Dean Koenig, that has done a lot for me. David Levy does live in the area. We do have a very active and big astronomy club. It's a relatively easy ride to the Riverside Telescope Making Convention, RTMC. RTMC is no longer, it's stopped. It stopped at 51 years. I used to help out a lot. I actually would organize what was called the Beginner's Corner for about its last 10 years or so. And it's sorry, but I guess, everything unfortunately ends. We do have relatively dark skies. John was asking me before this, he was saying, well, how dark are your skies? And I don't really use the Bordeaux thing, but from where I live, which is about a good 20 miles east of downtown, yes, I can easily see the Milky Way band. So that's not a problem. One thing that's great about here, there's no humidity. I mean, occasionally there is, but it's rare. No one has those dew warmers here. I don't know anyone who actually owns one in the area. So we have relatively warm winters and very hot summers. Okay, so getting into the planispheres a little bit, just a real quick history. Astrolabs, and I think everyone sort of knows what they look like. It basically had a flat surface that would represent the celestial spheres. Probably the very earliest were right around 350 BC, but they became pretty popular right around the 6th century. So it took a while for them to become popular. Right around 150 AD, Ptolemy was an incredible person, astronomer. I have actually a translation of the Almagest, which is his tome on astronomy. The book is actually incredible, but he was one of the first ones, right around that time to use the word planisphere. But back then, the word planisphere, as I have underlined here, it was a representation of a spherical Earth by a map drawn in a plane. So it wasn't really thought of as a star chart. It was basically a spherical. It was taking the spherical Earth, mapping it on a plane. And so that projection was called a planisphere. And of course, Mercator did lots of projections and things like that. He also used the word planisphere right around 1569, plus or minus, but he used the word as a planisphere to represent, the Earth being projected on a flat surface. So 1400, we'll skip a few years here. The printing press came about, and right around 1500, the first printed planispheres, that is representations of the celestial sphere on a flat surface, were produced. So, Just the plotting of stars, and I'll talk a little bit about this, how I do it. It says traditionally, as I say, all accurate star atlases had the position of stars placed on some projection, and the position of stars in DSOs, that is deep sky objects, had been measured and published by astronomers like Hevelius, Tycho, Kepler, Flamsteed, and Messier. I don't think Kepler did too much of this, but Kepler certainly used Tycho's work to figure out that the orbit of the planets were ellipses and not circles. And they used basically things called quadrants, like we have in the that I have in the picture to plot the positions. And Messier, of course, had a telescope with actual setting circles, so it was a little bit easier for him to do right extension and declination. And with the plotting of stars, early on, there were no planispheres or star charts per se. What there were celestial atlases. One of the most famous is Bayer's. I always forget how to say it. Uranmetria. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. In 1603, Bayer was the first one to assign Greek letters to the stars. Okay, that's one. And as you know, we still use his designations for many of the stars. This is the earliest charting. There weren't planispheres. There were atlases like this. They almost all had drawings, from the Greek representing what that constellation was. And you can see the stars here. You probably can't see from your screen, but most of the bright stars in here have Greek letters assigned to them, the Bayer, what we call the Bayer letters. Here is a bunch of planispheres, okay, that I found off the internet. These are older ones, and I'm guessing that most of these are probably right around the 1900s. Some of these are probably into the 1800s, and one or two of them might be a little bit over into the 1900s. What I personally have, I own, and I got lucky to get this Barrett Service planisphere, and this is from 1906. My cousin's, I have a cousin who's still living in Milwaukee. He bought, when I was in college, he bought his first home, a duplex, and in the basement, well, he wanted me to help him out move. So we got into the basement to do whatever, and this thing was hanging from the rafters. And of course, I saw it, and the first thing I said, Vince, can I have this? And of course, he hemmed and hawed because he just wanted to do that purposely. But yes, he gave it to me, and I've had it since. It's in basically the original condition. I mean, it's not in perfect condition, but this is cardboardish. Everything is basically cardboard. I wanted to just show you a close-up of the star wheel, and this is a real close-up. Now, when they plotted this was obvious that this was probably plotted by eye, maybe taken from another star atlas. If you look at the Big Dipper, and especially the ball, you will notice that its shape is not correct. Okay, and I get back then, if you're doing this sort of by eye, maybe copying something from another chart, I guess you just do the best that you can, and some things get distorted. If you go down to Hercules too, Hercules is sort of in the middle at the bottom. The string, the line goes through it. That Hercules is the body. The main body is supposed to look like a keystone. Well, that doesn't look like a keystone at all. And a keystone is that top trapezoidal type stone that gets on the when you make an arch out of rocks, a round arch out of rocks, the top of an archway. That's the keystone is the one that goes right in the middle. It keeps everything in place. And like Corona Borealis, and yeah, so things are a little shaky here when it comes when it's in regards to the shape of the constellations. But it's you got to start somewhere, and depending upon where you are in history, there's different resources available. Okay. Oh, wait a second, it did not move. Okay, how do I do it? Now, this is where a lot of you are going to say, oh my God, this guy's a cheater, because I heard other people say that before, but there's a caveat. how do I actually plot my stars either on my charts or in my Julie, quiet. So I've been holding her, or in my atlas. Well, I've used a planetarium program, and you may say, "Wow, this guy is just a plagiarizer." Well, no. On one of the slides, I think it's the next one or the one after that. Believe it or not, I found something and I verified it. So the plotting of stars is not copyright. So if you have a star chart, and you have stars plotted on them, that plotting itself, the actual plotting itself, is not a copyright. So that was a big bonus, for me to create charts and star charts and things of that nature. I still use this. Actually, I use this program today. It's an old 32-bit program. It doesn't work on the newest computers like the one I'm in now. So I have a computer, an old Mac, where I've kept the 32-bit system. But Carina Voyager, done by Carina Softwares, they don't sell this anymore. They haven't sold it for a number of years. But I have, for me, the Voyager has been by far the best planetarium software program out there. I think it never became dominant because that Carina, the Carina company, like me, they just were not good at marketing. But it was by far, and it still is. It still is to this day. It's a lot better than almost any other planetarium program out there. So this is what the interface basically looks like. It doesn't mean anything, but you can, with this program, you can get any type of star projection that you basically want. So I find the projection that I like, and I basically use those positions for plotting. So, and it's really just the stars, and I do use the size of them for magnitudes, but that's just the stars. Everything else I have to put in by hand, and that's the way it is. These are all the charts that I currently sell, and I'll be talking a little bit more about these. But the big one in the middle, that's my best selling. That's 16 inches in diameter. That's the one that Dean Koenig says that I should actually produce. And he was right. It does sell well. And being big, I can put a lot of information on the actual star wheel, without it being too cluttered. And I have gone through several editions for all these charts. The very first one that I produced of the 16-inch, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't that great. And but over the years, I've been able to improve it a lot, and I'm happy with what I have on it. So there's the 11-inch one to the left. I have a Southern Hemisphere one. That's the pink one. There's an equatorial one that has a front and a back. The star wheels on the front and the back, and that's made out of a heavy paper stock. My latest, the gray one in the lower right-hand corner, I just came out with that basically last year. That sells for $6.50 retail, and the star wheel can be taken out and flipped over. So one side of the star wheel is pretty simplified for people to get started. You take it out and flip it over, and the other side has double stars on it, a bunch of deep sky objects, a few variable stars, and some other things that are noted. Okay, just to show you. Oh, wait a second. This jumped again. What happens? There's a delay. This is sort of my prettiest star chart. It's discontinued. Scott Tucker at Star Arizona, he still works there. Scott is actually the one who's responsible for a lot of the technology within that hyperstar. So, but he's also good at drawing. So he drew the spaceman for me. And there's the little dad and his daughter in the bubbles for north and south. So he drew those for me. This one I discontinued. I sold it for $4 retail. I can't get it printed for anywhere near the cost that I was able to initially. So I discontinued it. Just to show you around the world, this is a star chart from Japan. My daughter lives in Japan. She married a Japanese guy. She's over there right now. She told me about this, and I visited Japan. Japan has a dollar store. Okay, just like we have dollar stores, their dollar store is called Daiso. That's the little red box in the upper left-hand corner. It's pronounced Daiso. Daiso stores, they're all over. They are fantastic. I mean, everything's a dollar or 100. It's really 100 yen, but that's the same as a dollar. So this Planisphere is $1. This is the best Planisphere you will ever find for $1. And if you look at the plots and things like that, it's actually pretty good. So this is the best deal in the world right now for a Planisphere. Okay, just talk about the 16-inch a little bit. So this is the front. There's a lot of information on it, instructions and things of that nature. Again, I went through, a learning curve, with, this is probably like the 4th edition, and it's pretty much it, except for a few changes on the back because of things that have changed in astronomy. But I'm pretty pleased with the plot and everything. And on the back, there's a lot of information, like a Tycho mythology. I talk a lot about a lot of the DSO, the deep sky objects that are on the front, tidbits and things like that. So this is just a close-up. Now, here's the thing. You say, well, how do I, how do I plot the stars? Yes, I go to the planetarium program. I find a polar plotting that I like. You have to play with it. So, and I use that as the basis. With the Planisphere, though, once I had all the stars down, I also had to move a bunch of constellations and stars and things to try to make it a little bit less distorted. So, it wasn't just like, I take something, I plot it down, and it's done. The other thing is that even though I use those programs to plot the position of the stars, everything else that you see, the constellation lines, the names, the Bayer letters, the Greek letters, all that has to be put in by hand. Using initially I used freehand. Now I'm stuck with, of course, Illustrator. But yes, so there's a lot of work beyond beyond the stars. Some people have thought, well, all I do is use a planetarium program and it literally just gives me what you're seeing here. No, I can't say I wish. In some ways, I've actually enjoyed just putting everything where it is, because I can put it where I want it, put it in a place that I like. So that's, having that control has been nice. Okay, quick, how do I write books and things? I do not use any other book or chart as a reference. So for all my charts, for all my books, I come up with an idea, and I just go with that idea. I don't look at other books. I don't use other books as a stepping stone. I just do what I want, and that's what I'm saying too. I create a chart or a book based on what I want in a chart or a book. That's how I have always done it. I'm not artistic. I am not artistic. I am creative. Okay, so the creativity has helped with putting together a book and star charts and things like that. And 3, I do have a lot of experience teaching remedial and beginning math and statistic courses. So I think I have a little bit of a greater insight than the average person for explaining concepts to beginners. So, and 4 is, I have stuck with black stars on a white background because it is easier to see and read. And this is what most people actually prefer. So it's always sort of driven me crazy that Astronomy Magazine and Sky and Telescope, traditionally and for the most part, they have had, the star chart in the middle has always been a black background with white stars. And I mean, that's fine. Some people like that, and that I understand that. But, overall, if you look at most star atlases, like basically all of them, it's going to be black stars on a white background. And that is much easier to usually for most people to translate that to the actual night sky instead of the white stars on the black background. Yeah, where are the plastic Planispheres made? So printing on plastic is a specialty. as I say here, most regular printers cannot do plastic except in a limited fashion. So I get all mine. Luckily, it's relatively close by. There is no real plastic printer in Tucson. There is no real plastic printer in Phoenix, but there is a great plastic printer in Las Vegas. So they've been printing my star charts, gosh, for at least 15 years now, maybe longer. You can sort of see the name. It's Johnson Business Machines. Johnson Business Machines does not sound like a plastic printer, but that's their story. Everyone has a story, but that's what they do, and they actually do a great job. I've been very pleased with them. We have a good working relationship. Okay, my Celestial Atlas. So this is the cover. One thing that's nice about if you are your own publisher like I am, and you're the author, I can do whatever I want. One of the things I've always hated about a lot of books, especially reference books, you open up the cover and you gotta turn 2 or 3 or 4 pages to get to the table of contents. That has always sort of driven me crazy a little bit. So with my Star Atlas, I said, I'm not gonna do that. So you turn the cover over, you have the table of contents, it's right there. You don't have to go looking for it. For me, I thought a Star Atlas should be relatively simple and to use, and things should be easily found and not hidden away. And I think I've accomplished that. There's probably always improvements though, but so it's nice to be able to basically do what I want to do. With this too, all of these charts, I got the basic position from the planetarium program, but everything outside of that, everything that you see, all the names, the names, the numbers, the Bayers, the Flamsteeds, the coordinate lines, all that is drawn in by hand. It is not automatic. The stars themselves are not automatic. I get a printout, I scan it in, and then I do basically like in freehand or Illustrator, I use that scan as the background, and every star is individually made. Okay, it's not some automatic thing. So everything that you see in here was hand done. I had back probably about over 10 years ago, probably about 15 years ago, I had an assistant. She started to work on these charts. So she did a lot of the work, but I ended up doing most of the work with the names, the placements of the objects and things like that. So it's all done by hand. Yes, we're looking at hundreds of hours. So okay, now I press the button and nothing happened. Let me press it again. Okay, yeah, and you can see like Orion, there's a lot of detail in these. It's all done by hand, because of my experience working in freehand and then Illustrator, even though it's a heck of a lot of work, because each circle, you have to draw a circle for each star. That's just one thing. Then you got to put in all the data, the names and everything else. But because I had a lot of experience, I sort of knew how to go about it in a methodical way. And you slowly but surely build these things. It just takes time. That's all it is. And obviously knowing how to use the programs, just like knowing how to use a table saw or any type of tool, how to use the computer. The computer is, basically is a tool in and of itself. Your phone, I can say iPhone, your phones are tools. So you get good at them. And so I got good at this stuff, but that initial training came from doing all those ads and other books and things of that nature. So also I have lots of tables in the Atlas. This is just like the ones that describe the objects by constellations. I have many tables. I created all of these tables. It's all done by hand, every entry. And I used other book references, to check what the object was. For the coordinates, I did use the planetarium program for the coordinates, because the planetarium program could basically do precession. That is, it's because I think when I initially did this atlas, I think I had the coordinates for 10 years ahead of when I published it. and the planetary programs can take that precession into account, which is, the little bit of movement that these coordinates change because the Earth's axis does wobble. So these coordinates are not literally set in stone. And although John mentioned this, it says, what do I do now? And I say, for the record, as I say, I've always tried to do as little as possible. I think the first time that came out of my mouth, probably about 20 years ago, I got some blood work done, and I don't know, something was wacko in my blood work. And so I had to, they wanted me to go to a specialist, which I did. So I'm sitting in front of this specialist in his office, this blood specialist. And he said, well, what do you do? And I think this is the first time it came out of my mouth. I said, well, I do as little as possible. And he wasn't amused. He was not amused at all. So, but just real quick, I consider myself to be an educator. I would not have probably said that 20 years ago, but I sort of finally figured out who I am. John mentioned I am a part-time instructor at the community college here in Tucson. I teach statistics within the psychology department. Why don't I teach astronomy? Because I don't actually have a formal degree in astronomy, so I can't teach it. The community college is pretty picky about credentials, and I did not take I took some undergraduate courses in astronomy, but there weren't many that could be taken at my school. So I don't even have enough of those to even enough credits of astronomy courses to even be able to teach one. But I love teaching statistics in the psychology department. That's where I should be. I am currently working on a non-credit course at the community college. It's called Pima Community College. It's the largest in Tucson. And it looks like this is going to be a go-ahead. It's going to start in October. It's going to be 6 weeks long, one night a week, 2 hours. And it's going to cover, I'm going to cover telescopes. And then I'll be bringing my telescopes because usually it's clear here. We'll observe the night sky, use planispheres to find the constellations and things of that nature. So it's taken me a while to get this course going, but it looks like it's going to actually happen. And I do, like you guys do, although I'm not a club guy, even though I am a member of the local club here, but I do outreach and help individuals, towns, organizations, with astronomy stuff. Every now and then something pops up. And as I say here in the second to the last, I have one more book to write, but I have had writer's block for over 10 years. So I don't know if I will get to write it. And smaller projects are better for me at this time. And yes, I still sell my star charts. I sell the star charts pretty consistently. So the books usually they will go up in sales, maybe over a year or 2 year, and then they will go down to almost nothing. That's what happens with a lot of books. So. And with me, it says, I don't like marketing, and that is not a good thing for my type of business. We all have our faults. And this is just to put it out there. If your club is interested in any of my products, and believe me, I do not push my products with anyone, but I'll sell them to the club at wholesale if you want to work something up. And if you discounted them 25% off retail, your club would make some money, and those who purchase it, would also save. Amazon used to discount my large star chart. It's still selling for $19.95, but that's going to probably go up. But I haven't seen them discount it at all in the last couple of years. So Amazon pulled a lot of us in, including myself, by often having some discounts and stuff here and there. And they did that a lot, maybe say like 10 years ago. But now I think pretty much their hook is that they're relatively fast delivery, although that depends upon where you live. So as I say here, thanks for keeping amateur astronomy alive and for your continued contributions, sharing this most awesome and beautiful science. So that's basically it. I think, did I do it within the time limit?
It looks great. Looks great. Ken.
Okay. Because usually I go long when I'm doing something on the computer like this. In class, I'm always on time, but I don't know why I go long on the computer. Okay. Any questions?
So there's two that I see so far. What magnitude does your planisphere go down to?
It goes down to, and I would have to actually double check. It's a good question. I haven't looked, but it's right around six magnitude, probably about 5.5. It's probably more realistic. Yeah.
And you mentioned something about the coordinates in the new atlas. Are you using J2000 or J2010 or J2020?
I think in the atlas, I think I have it as J 2020 or 2030. Yeah, when I did it, I went at least 10 years ahead. I would actually, I know I should really know this. It's just that because of everything else that I do. But yeah, I went about 10 years ahead. So it may be right around 2025 or 2030. It's probably about 2025.
Anybody else have any questions for Ken?
Richard?
I think I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I might mention that I bet there are a lot of members of our club who already own one of those Planispheres.
Okay, well, thanks.
They're very stylish, and I recognize a few of them. I know I have them probably around the house myself already. So yeah, you've penetrated the market, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
There's one person asking if you could just talk a little bit about writing astronomy for children.
You know, that was an interesting period. I just decided I wanted to, try to excite, kids in astronomy. So the first one I wrote was about our solar system. And that's it's sort of like, well, how does that come about? It was just something in me that was percolating, and I tried to write it as simply as I could, for considering the age bracket that the book would more or less appeal to. So now one thing with the books, with all my books, I did the writing. All the illustrations are pictures. I composed all those. I did all the pages with all that. But I also had an editor. So, and it's someone I had to pay. These editors aren't free. So they went through and corrected my grammar, and would indicate if something was awkward and things of that nature. The solar system book, like I says, I sold out on that. That got very good reviews. There's places you can send your books for reviews and things like that. And luckily I got it reviewed, which is, it's not the easiest thing to have books reviewed from very small publishers like myself. It got an excellent review, and I think that helped us sell it. So, and then the two others, in fact, I'm going to mention something, and I think John knows this. The two, one was on the universe in general, and then the one that I still have, and I sold out on that one, but the one I still have copies of is our constellations and their stars. I have about 700 to 800 copies of that. For some reason, that one did not sell out, but I give that away. So if you want copies, and it's a hardcover, with the dust jacket, and that one is, in essence, it's up to date. There's nothing in it that has gone out of date, because we're talking about the constellations and their stars, and they sort of don't move around too much. But that's absolutely free of charge. So if any of you would want 1 copies of that, 10 copies of that, all you have to do is pay for the USPS medium mail shipping, which is pretty reasonable, and I'll send them to you. Just contact me. So,
and where can they reach you?
They can reach me. The best thing would be just to email me initially, and that would be Ken, K-E-N, that's my name, at KenPress, KenPress.com. So Ken at kenpress.com. If you want to email me, if you go to my site, if you go to kenpress.com, KenPress.com, you'll find my email there and my telephone number. If you do call, I do have my phone. I'm tired of all of this spam stuff. So if you do call, leave a message and I'll get you a message. But your phone number probably won't ring through because of my heavy spam control.
All right, I think we have time for just one last question
Ooh,
from
okay.
Doug. Why are star charts not formatted as Mercator projections?
The thing is that if you go to a planetarium software like Voyager that I use, you can pretty much get any projection that you want. And so why one person does, when I say one person, one author publisher does one projection versus another, that's good. It's really totally up to them. So in my projections, and I'll be honest with you, mine probably aren't Mercators. I don't know exactly what they would be called, but I have always tried to use the projection that will give more or less the least distortion. Okay. And so exactly, the name of the projections that I've used, I'm actually not positive. So, but that's been sort of mine. When I've done the Planispheres, I've mentioned this, I've done a circumpolar thing on the planetarium thing, but I've had to massage quite a bit of it, because if you do a simple circumpolar projection, what happens is the stars towards the circumference of the star wheel, they sort of get squished too much. And so I've stretched those out a little bit to make them a little bit more realistic. Yeah. So so the Planispheres in particular, I've had to massage the plotting. For the star atlas, I did very little massaging there. I tried to find the projection that I thought would work the best for what I was trying to do.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Ken. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And hopefully we'll be talking to you in the future about that book that is still percolating.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, you guys take care. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Bye-bye. Have a nice night.
Okay. So back to our mini programs. I have a question first. Frank, are you behind the planetarium host name?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. I'm going to need your help when we do the astrophotos. Some of the people are going to need permission to talk.
No problem.
You are, of course, going to be first. I'm pretty sure. Let me click all the right buttons here so that we can get on with it. Astrophotos. Remember Astrophotos. So CFAS has some very active astrophotographers and sketchers. If you take any photos or do any sketches during the month, please send them to us so that we can showcase them at the meeting, and we'll give you a chance to talk about your work and how you accomplish them. First up this week or this month is Frank Kane, who sent in 2 photos. And Frank, since I know you're awake and paying attention already, I'll let you talk about this photo.
All right. This is M63, better known as the Sunflower Galaxy, shot over about 6 hours a couple of nights ago from my backyard here in Merritt Island. And off to the right there is that smaller galaxy, UGC 8313, I think it is. Thanks to Leonard Ward for identifying that for me. And it's kind of cool because originally I thought that tiny little galaxy to the right was really far away, and that's why it looks so small. But really it isn't. It's actually a companion to M63. And it's only 19 light years across as opposed to about 100 light years for the Sunflower Galaxy there. So they think that it might have passed through it and like ripped off that little tendril that you see there at the bottom, which is pretty cool. Anyway, yeah, I shot about 6 hours using a Maksutov Newtonian telescope on a Paramount Mighty Mount, unguided with an ASI 2600 mm camera.
Very nice. Thanks, Frank. And here's another one.
Yeah, this one's called the Medusa Nebula, and I'm kind of surprised I never heard of this one before. It's a really large planetary nebula located in Gemini, and it's pretty faint. It's about 11 hours onto this one to bring it out. Originally, they thought that it was a supernova remnant, but later on they figured out that no, it's actually a planetary nebula. So this might be the fate of our own sun in a few billion years. This thing's about 8 light years across, so you don't want to be anywhere near the sun when this happens, I think. A little cautionary tale, I guess, but... Same gear as before, shot, I don't know, week or 2 ago, backyard, like I said, 11 hours, same gear, Maksutov Newtonian telescope, Mighty Mount, unguided. Oh, and there's a narrowband enhanced in here too. So it's RGB with hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3 filter data kind of added into it.
Nice. How long were your exposures for this narrowband image?
60 seconds for LRGB and 5 minutes for narrowband.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. Great work.
Thanks.
Next up is Fritz. Fritz Lahn, who I believe this is some narrowband data as well.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, going kind of following the bicolor train here from Frank, the Dumbbell Nebula M27, using hydrogen alpha and O3. This one with my GSO RC10 setup, using the 383L camera still, which unfortunately isn't super sensitive to O3, but you know, nothing a future upgrade can't solve. But again, this is 28 hours total of exposure, 10-minute subs for both hydrogen alpha and oxygen. And then just like Frank did as well, switching out the stars with RGB. In this case, I think I ended up actually going 2 minutes on that one just to kind of pick up some more faint color on some of the smaller stars here. But I think I probably spent 28 hours at least just on, you know, finessing the color on bicolor. I think it is one of the, it's a black hole with what you can do, because you can do anything. And so I kind of went more for a cotton candy look with the really getting the red to highlight there in the middle and kind of draw you in there. But in the end, I was really happy with this color, which again, I always find just the hardest thing with narrowband imaging. But now I've got a few hundred more hours of data I need to process that's been accumulating and get some more finished photos up here.
Great. Thanks. That's a great bicolor shot.
Thanks.
So Ashton Guittard, he sent in 2 photos, not these 2, but these 2, and then another photo. There we go. Ashton.
All righty, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you great.
All right, awesome. So this was taken, I want to say 3 weeks ago, but it could be a little longer. But this was taken about 3 weeks ago, and I was setting up for a star trail shot around Polaris. That's Polaris there in the middle, and I was exposing at 20-second exposures for about an hour and a half, and over the course of that time, the full moon rose up. And so comparing the images from the beginning of my exposure to the end just showed such a different night sky because the moon came up and illuminated it so much. And I just thought it was interesting that I had the ability to show the contrast in that, because I had photos like this that were framed the same. So that's what this is. The one on the left is essentially a new moon, and the one on the right is with the full moon fairly high in the sky at that point.
Yeah, the sky turns kind of blue when the moon is out like that. All right, great. Well, here's your next one. This looks like your completed star trails image from that night.
Yep, this was actually from the following night, because the one that I was setting up for ended up coming out a little blurry, so I redid it. But all the lines that you can see in this image are actually planes. None of them are satellites. I didn't capture a single satellite in any of the exposures that I did, which I found kind of interesting. But as you can see, plenty of planes flying through with Polaris there in the middle. Again, this was about the same, about an hour of exposure with 20-second exposures apiece at about 800 ISO. I found that's a nice ratio there that works for me.
Great. I've done some star trails and I'll get one plane trail through it. And I always like direct that sub or something. But for some reason, I really like this with all of the plane trails through it. It has an interesting quality to it that appeals to me. Anyway, I like that. So thanks for sending that in.
Yeah, out here they're kind of avoidable, unfortunately. And just on a slight side note, the one that I took the night before that came out a little blurry had so many more That was taken on the night of that race that happened in Daytona, and I think that's why.
Yes.
But it was insane how many planes I caught in that one. But
That race in Daytona. Yep, that brings in a few people. So our next image is from a new member, William Burns. If we give him a chance, William, introduce yourself and tell us about your photo here. You sent in 2 photos. I went ahead and took the picture of your scope and kind of made that a set of pictures. So,
oh yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I hear you great.
Hi, nice to meet you all. Great to finally be here. I've been kind of like looming in like the groups for a while. I just have like usually had a time confliction with the meeting time, so I hadn't been able to attend, unfortunately. But I'd been in the area for a while. I go to Embry-Riddle. I'm a software engineering major, and I've been doing astrophotography for like probably like 8 or 9 years now. But now that I'm like in college, I can actually like afford equipment, so which is cool because it's really expensive. But this here is
Just a bit.
Yeah, just a bit. But this here is a picture of Thor's helmet that I took over 5 nights starting on February 21st through the 25th. We had like that run of almost a week of clear skies. So I had my telescope that you can see set up on the bottom right here, set up on the roof of one of our academic buildings at the school. I just covered it during the day, and it just ran all night, chugging away at this target, which is an HOO. So I used 3 nanometer chroma, HA, and O3 filters for this one. And yeah, it's about 21.33 hours of integration time on this. And I also did RGB stars to get to like accent it, because I don't really like HOO stars, but yeah.
Great job. Thanks. Awesome.
Thank you.
So that same clear streak he was talking about, I did some astrophotography. I have a ton of data from the last, actually the last 2 new moons I have not processed yet, but I processed this little galaxy of M61 for my Messier poster that I'm working on. This is about 2 hours of data with a Canon EOS RA on an Esprit 150 refractor. I did this at my dark sky site down in Okeechobee. An interesting and possibly educational tip for other astrophotographers was this was plan C. I had 3 cameras with me, and I had trouble with 2 of the cameras, and I said, the heck with it. I just put my DSLR on. I had no intention of shooting with the DSLR on the telescope. I was going to do some nightscapes and play with a new remote control for my camera, but I couldn't let a good clear night go to waste. I had a telescope, so I put the RA on. And this is actually 30-second exposures. And I don't know, it came out pretty good. It's good enough for a thumbnail on my poster anyway. So M61, and then the 2 little galaxies, NGC, little tiny ones, NGC 4303 to the lower right, and NGC 4292 to the lower left also showed up pretty good. So that is Astrophotos. We'll close that now. And our next mini program is back to John Pinto, who's going to tell us about what's up in what's going on this month. John, tell us.
Thank you very much, Richard. So let me get this started.
Let me stop sharing. Are you taking over?
Okay, share that. There we go. Okay, what's up in the night sky? This is hopefully going to be a regular mini program each month, as long as I can do it. And the idea is that this is mainly geared toward our newer members who maybe are just beginning in astronomy and want to, in essence, learn the sky. Where is everything? The way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to introduce what's coming up in the sky, what's rising in the east, both in the evenings and the mornings, because some of us are night people, some of us are morning people. I'm a morning person. So I wanted to make sure I covered both times that people will be out looking at the sky. And then secondly, I'm going to go over some of the sky events that you may want to experience that will also help you to learn the sky. And I'll talk about that when we get to the sky events. I'm also going to focus on Central Florida. So I'm not going to, show you what things look like up in New York or, down in South America. Really looking to explain what you see right here in the Orlando area. So that means light polluted skies. I'm not going to be talking about, things that are faint. We're going to be talking about the brightest of stars, the brightest of constellations. I will mention just a few things you might be able to see with binoculars if you have them. And the idea is to learn the sky month by month, right? That's how I learned. When I was a teenager and learning the sky, I would just go out, a couple nights every month and try and figure out what's out there. And over the course of a year, eventually you have a good framework of what's in the celestial sphere. And then from there you can go on to more, advanced stuff, which other members in our club can do way much better than I can. Let's see. The other great thing about learning the sky this way is the sky doesn't change, okay? Stars don't move. So the only thing that moves is the time of day and the time of year that you go out and look outside. So if you know what it looks like in the mornings in March, that's the way the mornings in every March is going to look. If you know what the sky looks like in the evenings in July, every July for the rest of your life, that's what the sky is going to look like. The only thing that changes is where are the planets and where's the moon. Those are the wanderers in our night sky. And we will be talking about that as we go through each of these programs. Okay, so as a beginner, the first thing you have to understand is the sky is huge. I mean, it's really big. Most people, when they look at a star chart or a planisphere as Ken creates, you think the sky is, the things that you see are going to be that big in the sky. And the answer is it is nowhere near as tiny as they are in those books. So the first thing that you have to understand is sky measurements. How big are things in the sky? So really easy things to use are your hands, all right? And these little illustrations here, which come from the Observer's Handbook, and you'll see these illustrations in almost every astronomy book that you'll ever pick up that's explaining to you how to view stuff in the sky. You need to understand, if I tell you this is 2 degrees from something, well, that's like 2 pinkies. And that's with your arms outstretched, okay, not up by your face, but as far out as you can stretch it. And that works for pretty much everybody, whether you're a young person, middle age, old, it just works. Who knows? The universe gave us hands to measure the skies. The other thing that you can do, especially now, this time of year, is the Big Dipper's up, and you can check yourself to make sure that your measurements with your hands actually do work. So over here on the right-hand side are the various measurements of the different parts of the Big Dipper. So you can see, okay, is that really 25 degrees when I stick my hand up there? Is that really 10 degrees? Is that really 5 degrees? So I encourage you to do that any clear night where you can see the Big Dipper, and make sure that you're measuring it correctly. Another thing that is important is to be able to tell you where things are in the sky, right? Is it in the east? Is it in the south? Is it in the north? So this is a basic sky directions. Everything works off the where north is, but since I'm mainly going to be focusing on east, you need to know where east is in your sky. When you go outside and you want to look at the sky, you want to learn the stars, where is east? So it's easy. It's where the sun comes up. So we actually have a really wonderful day coming up, March 20th. It's a Sunday. Hopefully it'll be clear. But even if it's not, you should be able to see where the sun is coming up in the morning. And the reason March 20th is special is because that is the day of the year. There is another day, but that's the closest day, when the sun rises due east. So if you can figure out where that is, will have a good handle on east. I also recommend getting a compass because there'll be some things that I'll say, it's in the southeast. Well, where's that? So if you have a compass either on your phone or you have a handheld one you picked up at a camping store, or when you were in the Boy Scouts, you just, take it out. And if I say southeast, find where 135 degrees is, and that's what we'll be talking about. Okay. Oh, one thing about this image, you may be wondering, why are there commas in the numbers? So I see like 112, 5. I see 22, 5. This image comes from Europe, and in Europe, commas are decimal points. All right, so I'm doing a little bit of a ad here for Ken. So he has a site, whatsoutTonight.com, and you can get all kinds of free, great information here for beginners. So every month he has a star chart that you can print out for free, and I'm going to be using his star charts tonight. I probably use different star charts every month because I just have so many different kinds, and they all are just wonderful to use. But his are wonderful. You can print them out. You can even print them out in the future, and you'll see why that's important in a little bit. And he always puts little notes in there about like what's interesting to see in the sky tonight over here in his sky notes. You can also find his products here and order them and contact Ken. So it's a wonderful, wonderful site. Okay, so let's get into the night sky. So these are mid-March evening Eastern sky. What do we want to see when we go outside in March? So the first thing I'd want to say is this is a good time to make sure you know where the Big Dipper is. And again, that is big. It's not tiny. It's not tiny like this screen. So you can definitely go out there, stick your hand out. It's wider than your hand. That's how big it is. So if you are seeing anything that's not that big and you think that's the Big Dipper, you're wrong. Another thing you can do is come out to one of our star parties or public star parties. And if you don't know where any of this stuff is, please come and ask us. We will show you where things are. We have laser pointers and all kinds of other things to help you orient yourself in the sky. So from the Big Dipper, the most important thing you can learn from the Big Dipper is how to find the North Star, because north is sort of like, as I said, where all of the other directions start from. So the way you find the North Star is you find the end of the Big Dipper. Let me turn my pointer on here. It's a little easier, I think. Pointer. There you go. All right, there we go. So you take your pointers here and kind of see how big that is. It's about 5 degrees. And you go 5 times that length and you will get to the North Star. Okay, but we're going to be talking about the east. So what is up in the sky in the east that's bright, right? Like I said, we're talking Orlando. We're talking it's bright out there. And so a lot of these stars you're not going to see. But you will definitely see this one star right here, Regulus, high up in the east. And you probably will see this star here, that's Algeba. And you may see this star down here, the Nebula. And that makes up the constellation of Leo. And this piece of Leo is called the Sickle. Now, one way, again, if you can't figure out where this is in the sky, in just a couple of days on the 15th, the moon is going to be right here. So when you see the moon over here, you're going to see the brightest star you see next to it. That's going to be Regulus. There's one other bright star you're going to see in the eastern sky, and that's Alphard from the heart of the Hydra. So typically Regulus at this time of year, Regulus and Hydra are pretty much at the same height above the horizon, just Hydra, Alphard's to the right. So be aware of that. So this is where you start as a beginner. All right, what about the planets? Well, there's no planets in the evening sky this March. So I figured, let me put in here a picture of where we are in the solar system in March. And this illustration comes from Sky and Telescope magazine, great magazine. If you're not subscribed to it, you should take advantage of it. The club you get a little bit of a discount for being a member of our club when you call them to subscribe. Just tell them, yeah, you're with the Central Florida Astronomical Society, and they'll give you a little discount. Anyway, so here is the Earth. We're just before the March equinox, so we're pretty much like right here. And this side of the sky, to the right of the sun, is the morning sky. Okay, up here would be the evening sky. And you see there is no planets up here. So in the morning, when if you're up at 6 o'clock next week after daylight savings time starts, and you look to the east before the sun comes up, you're not going to see Mercury. Mercury is just too close to the sun, but you will definitely see Venus. It's probably the brightest thing in the southeast sky. You can't miss it. And just to the right of Venus is Mars. Okay, so those are the two you're definitely going to see in a March morning. Going out a little bit further, this little tiny thing here, that's this big thing here. So Jupiter and Saturn are really far away, but they are bright. Now, same problem with Jupiter. It is just a little too close to the sun right now to see it. Probably more towards middle of April. Be much easier to see. And similarly, right now, Saturn is a little bit too close to the sun, unless you know exactly where to look. But again, towards the end of March, Saturn is going to be a lot easier to see. And you're going to see that in a minute. All right, so what happens if you go out in the morning during March? So for the next few days, we're talking 5 a.m. But after Sunday, when we get into daylight savings time, we'll be talking something like 6 a.m. So when you go outside at 6 a.m., you will actually be looking at what is normally the July sky chart, because your March mornings, you're seeing the same stars that you would see in a July evening. And you're going to see that, as we do these programs, you sometimes have to look at a different star chart for the morning sky. So what are you going to see in the morning? So the most important thing to see in the morning, again, you're learning the sky, is to learn the summer triangle. So Vega, Deneb, and Altair. Again, they're the brightest stars you're going to see in the eastern sky, pretty much halfway up the sky. Again, this is large. Okay, so let's see, what do I have here? From Vega to Deneb is 24 degrees. So, almost your full hand outstretched is going to be that far apart. From Vega to Altair is 34 degrees. So even larger than your hand. And between Deneb and Altair is 38 degrees. So this is a huge, huge asterism. This will give you great practice using your sky measures with your hands. And as I said, in the morning, Venus is going to be on your eastern horizon, really bright. Mars is going to be right next to it. And towards the end of March, you might start seeing Saturn kind of join the party there. What else should you look at while you're here? Another thing to look at is to practice finding the Big Dipper again. Now, in the evening, the Big Dipper is in the northeast, but in the morning, you're going to find that it's in the northwest. And there's a famous little way to learn another couple of constellations, another couple of bright stars, is you find the handle of the Big Dipper, and it's called arcing to Arcturus. Okay, it's again the brightest star you're going to see if you just follow this arc, and you're going to come to a really bright star. That's Arcturus, and that's in the constellation of Boötes. And if you continue that arc a little bit further, you're going to come to Spica or Spica, depending on who you're talking to. They have different ways of pronouncing that. So, as I said, this is going to be the northeast. Arcturus is going to be in the west, high in the west, and Spica is going to be lower down in the southwest. So again, learn where those directions are in the sky, and using your compass, and you'll easily be able to find this. And this is going to really help you find other things in the sky. And I'm going to give you one example of that. So once you know where Arcturus and Spica are, you can easily find another great bright star, and that is the star of Antares in the heart of the Scorpius. So the way you do this is Spica and Arcturus, think of it as one side of a right triangle, and then from Spica to Antares is the other half of that big right triangle, and then from Antares back to Arcturus. So this is one really large right triangle. And again, if you're still having a hard time determining where Antares is, the moon is going to be by Antares on March 23rd. So hopefully it's clear that morning. You get out March 23rd, see where the moon is, bright star right next to it. That's going to be Antares. Okay. Now let's get into April. Now I'm only going through early April because we'll meet again, I think like April 9th or something like that. So I'll be doing another late April, early May next month, I hope. So we're talking, 9 o'clock in the evening when we get into April will be in Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And again, we're going to be looking in our Eastern horizon. And this is, again, where you're going to be able to practice that arc to Arcturus and Arcturus spiking to Spica to find Bootes and Virgo. And again, we have another really large triangle that you can use to find yourself in the sky. So you have, again, Arcturus and Spica are one side of the right triangle. And another side, going kind of the opposite way from Antares, is Regulus. Again, that's part of the Leo the Lion that we looked at in March. So Leo is going to be like almost right overhead. So once you can find these two guys, that triangle is going to go straight up to Regulus. Now these triangles, these large triangles, will help you at any time you see Arcturus or Spica in the sky. Either you're going to be able to draw that triangle and find Regulus, or draw the triangle the other way to find Antares. So once Arcturus and Spica up, you've got a good way to learn yourself around the sky. I will mention a binocular object you may want to try. This may be a little bit too early to try it, but down here is the keystone of Hercules that Ken was talking about. And there's a wonderful globular cluster called M13 that is a binocular object. Now it's just going to look like a fuzzy little dot, a little bit bigger than a star. And if you come out to a star party, I'm sure you'll have club members who will show you M13 in all its glory in their telescope. But it's just wonderful to be able to just pick stuff out with the binoculars. Let's see, what else do I see here? I also see, again, if you're having a hard time finding Regulus, on the 12th of April, the moon will be right near Regulus. All right, so where are the planets in April? All right, well, Jupiter and Saturn really haven't moved very much, but the Earth has. So the Earth is now sort of over here somewhere. It's going to be a lot easier to see Jupiter as April goes along. In fact, towards the end of April, Jupiter will be really easy to see. Saturn gets much easier, and it actually joins with Venus and Mars to form a really tight triangle in the sky, which we'll talk about when we get to the sky calendar. All right, so what do we see on April mornings? Well, April mornings, you're still going to have the summer triangle high up in the sky over here. You're still going to have, well, you may not be able to have it anymore. I'm just trying to think here. What are you going to see? Well, yeah, you're not going to see it here because I cut this off. But Arcturus and Spica are going to be kind of low in the western sky, but they will be still making that right triangle with Antares, which will now be probably in the southwest. But the thing to focus on at this time of the year is you're going to start seeing the great square or the great diamond of Pegasus. And again, this is a fairly large asterism. from the top of the great square to the bottom and across, that's 20 degrees. So again, we're talking one full hand span, put your hand out, extend your thumb and your pinky out, and that's about how far apart that is, and that's about how far apart that is. Another wonderful thing you can try for, and again, this might be a little bit too early to try it because it's going to be low on the horizon, but you might be able to see the Andromeda Galaxy in your binoculars starting in April. Again, Venus, Mars, Saturn, they're going to be very prominent in the southeast sky. On the 28th of March, I know this is the April sky calendar, but actually the 28th of March, the moon joins this little trio here. It makes a beautiful, beautiful sight. Hopefully we'll have some astrophotography next month where people have caught that for us to enjoy. All right, so enough about looking at the sky. What are the things that are happening? I'm going to go through this pretty quick because I don't want us to be going too much over. So let's go through this fairly quick. And some of this is going to help you learn the sky because it's going to be things like, well, find the moon. Well, if you can find the moon, you'll be able to see, as you'll see what we're going to say. All right, so Thursday, tomorrow is first quarter moon. Any of you who are selenophiles, you know that is a great time to observe the moon. This Terminator goes through some wonderful craters. On Saturday, the moon is going to be 3 degrees from Pollux in Gemini. We haven't talked about Pollux, we haven't talked about Gemini, but if you go out on the 12th, you see the moon, it's right next to a bright star. That's Pollux in Gemini. Sunday, daylight savings time begins. For the next month or so, astronomical night begins at 9 p.m. And that's why those star charts were set for 9 p.m. And it ends at 6 a.m., which is again why I set the star charts for 6 a.m. All next week, Venus and Mars will only be 4 degrees apart from each other in the southeast sky. On the 15th, basically next Tuesday, this is something, if I had to pick one thing for the whole next month to do, see if you can observe this. Hopefully it'll be a clear night. The moon occults a star. Now, that may not sound exciting, but it's pretty exciting to actually try and see this. So the moon will not be, it'll be bright, but the star that it is occulting, which means the moon is going in front of the star, so the star is just going to blink out around 7:45 in the evening. You probably will want to use binoculars because the moon is so bright and Eta Leonis is not that bright. You're going to need binoculars to see this. So this should be fairly easy to see, again, assuming it's not cloudy. And about an hour later, it will pop out on the other side. But that's going to be hard to see because that's going to be popping out on the bright side of the moon. So definitely we'll have to use binoculars to see that. Because it's in Leo, it's going to be right near Regulus. So the brightest star you're going to see near the moon is Regulus. On the 18th is the full moon, called the worm moon. Now, for our astrophotographers, that's probably like the worst time of the month. But for those of us who are just learning the sky, this is a great time because the full moon blots out all the really dim stars and just leaves the bright ones. And that's what you're trying to learn as a beginner to find your way around the sky. Just want to be able to see the bright stars and not be distracted by the dimmer stars. On the 19th, the moon will be near Spica in Virgo. So that Spica, Spike to Spica. Again, if you can't find it, this is a great night to go out and see it. That bright star right by the moon, that night, that's Spica. As I mentioned earlier, on the 20th is the equinox. This is the day the sun rises exactly east, that's exactly west. So it's a great time to learn your directions in the sky. Where is east if you don't know where that is? On the 23rd, the moon will be visiting with Antares. Again, if you haven't been able to find where Antares is, a great time to go out there in the morning and you'll see where the Antares is because it'll be the brightest star right next to the moon. On the 25th, Venus, Mars, and Saturn will be forming a really tight triangle, only 4, 5, and 7 degrees apart. separating all three planets. Again, it's a morning thing you're going to want to see. For those of you who are into variable stars, I know this is maybe a little bit more advanced, and you really need to know where this star is. And again, this is a good thing to come out to one of our star parties, and we'll show you where Algol is, probably with the most famous variable star in the sky. It's easy to actually observe this dimming and then brightening of Algol once you know exactly where it is and what time it's going to happen. On the 28th, that tight triangle of stars is going to be joined by the moon. And again, this is, I hope we get some good astrophotos of that event. That's going to be pretty. On the 29th, Venus will be just 2 degrees from Saturn. So Venus and Saturn are going to get really close together in the morning. And again, we have another Algol minimum on the 29th. So that's our March sky calendar. Let's flip over to April, early April. First, we have a new moon. On the 3rd, again, not sure you're going to want to try this, but the moon will be extremely close to Uranus on Sunday, April 3rd. Definitely need binoculars for this. Uranus will probably be the brightest thing you see next to the moon, because all the other stars that are around it are going to be a little bit dimmer. Both Monday and Tuesday, April 4th and 5th in the morning, Saturn and Mars will be almost touching each other. They'll be a half a degree from each other. That's going to be another spectacular sight. Hopefully somebody will get a good picture of that. On the 4th, in the evening, the moon will be near the Pleiades. And again, if you don't know what the Pleiades is, take a look. It'll be a really tight bunch of stars right near the moon that night. The next night, the moon will be near Aldebaran in Taurus. Again, another star and constellation we haven't talked about, but again, brightest star you'll see near the moon on the evening of the 5th. That will be Aldebaran. On Friday the 8th, the moon will be near Castor and Pollux. If you remember last month, I said the moon was going to be near Pollux. On the 8th of April, it'll be just below both of those stars. On the 9th, the moon will be even closer to Pollux. And this will be the last event for this particular mini program, and I'll probably talk more about this next month. Mercury finally emerges after sunset in the west. And as April progresses, especially towards the end of April, Mercury is going to be extremely easy to spot in the western sky. Here's some other resources. These are all wonderful free internet resources. More sky maps you can download. This is a great little planetarium. Planisphere, online Planisphere. Heavens Above has all kinds of resources, including, when's the space station going to go overhead? When's the Hubble going to go overhead? Plus a really great sky map. Sky and Telescope has an interactive sky chart. They also have observing news, kind of my, similar to my sky calendar, what's happening this week in the sky. Same thing with the Navy site with their sky this week. AstroPixels has another almanac of sky events, and the AAVSO has lots of information about variable stars. All right. One thing to mention, if you use any of these sites, is it's important to make sure that they know where you are. All sky maps depend on your location on the Earth, so that they're showing you the sky as it appears where you are. So not only do you need to make sure that it knows that you're in Orlando or the Orlando area, it also needs to know what time zone you're in. So we're Eastern time, daylight savings time. If it does not give you the ability to say I'm in Orlando, or tell me where I am, or even if it can figure it out, sometimes it gets it wrong. You'll want to make sure that your latitude comes out about 29 degrees north, and that your longitude comes out at about 81 degrees west. And some sites you can't say 81 degrees west, you have to say negative 81 degrees. It's just how they do it. There are some of these sites that will tell you, when is something going to happen, and instead of using Eastern time, they're going to call it Universal time or Greenwich time or something like that. To get our time when daylight savings time is in effect, which it will be for the next bunch of months, you just take that Universal time and you subtract 4 hours. For the few months when we're not in daylight savings time, you would subtract 5 hours from Universal time to get our local. And that's it. You know everything you need to know to get yourself started this month and next to start learning the night sky. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, John. Look forward to future installments. And the switcheroo, how fast can you click? Now it is time for just a minute on the moon. This month, we're going to be talking about Messier objects on the moon. Yes, there are 8, that's right, 8 features on the moon, named for the same French astronomer, Charles Messier, for whom the famous Messier catalog of deep sky objects are named. Where can you find these 8 features? Right here in Mare Fecunditatis, which translates to Sea of Fecundity. Yes, that's helpful. Fecundity means fertility, so let's just call it Sea of Fertility. It could be pronounced fecundity, I suppose, but I took German in school, not Latin, so we'll just leave it at that. Anyway, you've probably seen 2 of the Messier craters and not known what they are called. The rays are actually quite bright, especially at full moon, brighter than they actually show in this image. The crater Messier is the leading crater of this pair, with Messier A being the apparently trailing crater. This is odd because it looks more to me like the impact was in reverse order, but the rays actually would have been thrown forward by the bouncing impact that these craters, that created these 2 craters. Yes, I said bounce. This is a high resolution lunar reconnaissance orbiter image, and you can see the dimple of Messier, which is 7.2 miles across, and the secondary crater Messier A, 6.66 miles across, with its long protruding double set of rays. Is it just a coincidence that Charles Messier was a comet hunter and this crater and ray system looks a lot like a comet? I think not. So we have Messier A, but wait, there's more. Messier B is nearby at 4 miles across. D is 5 miles wide. There's 3 mile wide Messier E, 3 mile wide J, and 2 mile wide Messier L. These lettered craters are called satellite features and are considered satellite craters of the main named crater, though not necessarily related. Why are some letters missing? Well, some satellite craters got renamed over time, and some lost out to other names in the IAU naming process. That's the International Astronomical Union. You know, those fine people who killed Pluto. And finally, we have 46-mile-long Rima Messier, which is a lunar rill or fault line. That's 7 craters and 1 lunar rill named after the most famous comet hunter of all time. Be sure and check them out yourself this month. They're all visible with even a modest telescope. And that's, well, maybe 2 minutes on the moon. Until next month, bye-bye. And that's it. Mauricio, are you ready to talk about stuff? I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Sure am.
All
Hey,
right.
Richard, really quick, I had a question about your presentation because I recently learned from Neil deGrasse Tyson that the reason most, if not all, lunar craters they appear to be almost perfect, like circles instead of ovals, like how you would expect if you threw like a rock angularly at some sand on the beach, you get like an ovular crater. He said that the impact is so powerful that the asteroid essentially just explodes on impact, and therefore making a radial, blast that just leaves a circular crater. So I was really surprised to see that that really ovular looking crater just now. That was cool.
There are actually a few. Well, first of all, Neil is mostly right. Obviously, if an atomic bomb goes off, it really doesn't matter which way it was moving when it goes off. And these objects are moving at tens of thousands of kilometers per second. So they vaporize and they release tremendous amounts of energy, and it really is like a nuclear explosion going off. And so when that energy is released, that energy moves in all directions, and creates usually a very circular opening. There are a few odd craters that are elongated. What causes them is still somewhat debated, is particularly Messier A and B. I said bounce. Bounce is the leading theory, but I actually agree with a couple of other observers and planetary scientists who think that there may be as many as actually 3 impact craters that are overlaid, and so it looks like an elongated crater. There have been a couple of minutes on the moon where I talked about some craters on the other side. There's a peanut-shaped Strickler that may be as many as 3 impact craters. Also, what happens sometimes is the impact craters get filled with lava, and so all of the rings are together, but because of the lava floor, you can't see that they used to be separate rings. So, but yeah, Messier A and B is pretty weird. The problem I have with the bouncing is, where's the rock? If it didn't vaporize and it bounced, I mean, there should be a giant boulder somewhere nearby, and it's not. I think as maybe when we go to the moon and we get more and more high resolution data of the area and maybe boots on the ground there, we may find that it's 3 separate. Well, the oval one is actually is 2 separate ones, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
I love how everything is. You have to be like a detective, figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Richard.
Sure.
Okay, so February was pretty busy, successful outreach month. So got about 10 minutes here. I'm going to try and cover this as quickly as I can. Before I get into outreach, I just wanted to shoot everyone a friendly reminder that we have, this is not so much outreach. We do have an upcoming kind of a CFAS mini star party event at Chiefland from March 31st to April 3rd. So just in case anyone hasn't heard that news yet, I'm going to go ahead. I went ahead and added the link to where you can find some info on that in the chat here on the group's IO. Okay, and so that's going to be you have to get the Chiefland membership first. It's $25, I believe, and then I think it's like $9 per night for camping, but it's first come first serve, so that might be a limited thing for anybody who is interested. But yeah, go check out the link. Oh, thank you, John, for reminding me. Yeah, you need to bring cash for that one. But yeah, so the information should be right there in the CFAS post or in the group's IO post. So please check it out if you're interested. All right, so moving on to our outreach. Let me go ahead and pull up these photos here so we can get started. There they are. All right, guys. So starting since our last meeting, we've had quite a few events. So starting with our moon party in Princeton Elementary, which is very close to downtown Orlando. This was a crazy event. It was incredibly busy. We had like 600 attendees, we think. I'm actually really impressed with how the lady that runs this event, she's been doing it for several years, so she really knows how to get people out to this one. So you can, and this, you see a lot of people in this photo, but it's really nothing compared to how crazy it got. So here we see Bob and Ginger getting started. We had a pretty early moon that day, so we were able to get started even during the daytime, which was awesome. Here's Liv looking through Trisha's telescope here up at the moon. And yeah, things really started getting pretty busy. Kids running everywhere. It was madness. Len is awesome in this picture. I love him over there. And we've got Eric and Anna over here talking to some people who, by the way, if you haven't met yet, Eric and Anna Jakey, they're some of our newest kind of outreach volunteers, and they've been killing it, man. They've been coming out to almost every event this month, and I really appreciate how much they've been committed to this. And Anna knows more about space than I did at that age, for sure, and probably won't be long before she overtakes a lot of us in that department. Definitely myself. All right, so that was an awesome event. So next up we have the Heavenly Love event, which is actually the same night. Big thank you to Derek for putting that one together. We had something like 75 people come out to view telescopes, and probably more people at his planetarium presentation that he did. So here everyone's lined up for Yamel's telescope, and here we got Paul Mauro with his awesome setup, and he was doing some really sweet live stacking that day. I think he had an Andromeda up. It was pretty awesome. I wanted to give a very special thanks to John Pinto, because it takes a really special outreacher to come out and not like even set up a telescope, but just to do this kind of stuff, like directing traffic. To anyone at home who has been maybe debating about coming out to an outreach, but is maybe feeling like, oh, I don't know, I'm not great with my telescope, or I just don't feel super comfortable talking to folks about my telescope or showing them things. You know, we always love having at least one person who's there, not necessarily with a telescope, but just helping out with crowd control, traffic control, or even just talking to people, or just having someone who can step in and man a telescope for 5 minutes while the owner, you know, tries to manage something else. It's really difficult to multitask a telescope and a table, or telescope and just any other thing. So John, thank you for always stepping forward and just, you know, being awesome and helping out in any way that you can. Great picture that Derek took of the moon above the planetarium tonight. I always love these compositions. And there's Derek looking really snazzy in his tuxedo. He's looking on point that night. All right, so I got to this. I was at the moon party that same night, and then I rushed over here to see if I could help. So I was able to show people. I want to say, I think I was showing them the Pleiades this night, and I was doing some cell phone photography of both the moon, and I think I got pretty sure I got the Pleiades, maybe even Orion's Nebula in there for a few people. That's something really I've mentioned a few times, but I'm really excited about doing. And Derek actually got some phenomenal pictures with his cell phone of the Orion Nebula. He was able to do like a 20-second exposure on his Schmidt-Cassegrain, which was really cool. So the night mode that is on a lot of these phones now is just crazy how it can basically like do a very brief live stacking to produce like deep sky objects that are actually somewhat decent looking for, you know, for a cell phone. So I think this young lady here is looking through Leonard's telescope. I think no, that's not right. That's I think that might be Mark Pernal's scope, but I'm not 100% sure. All right, so what else do we have going on here? So before I move on to this event, because this is at Canaveral Seashore, we had Derek Derek went ahead and took care of an event over at the Palms at Serenoa over in Claremont, and that was just like a kind of a private event for that community. He had like 250 people. So thank you again, Derek, for that. He also handled an event. Oh, actually, may have forgotten to throw on. Yeah, I just realized I forgot to throw on some of the Kissimmee pictures. Darn it. But we did an awesome Telescope Thursdays over at Kissimmee Lakefront Park, and we had tons of volunteers come out to that one. So thank you very much, everyone that came out. We have a new outreacher, Will Okendo, who that was his first outreach event. So it was really awesome having him out there Really kicking myself for not including those pictures because those are some really great ones, but you may have seen them on the Facebook. These pictures here are from the Canaveral Seashore weekend that we had. Unfortunately, it was kind of limited the amount of volunteers because of COVID. So we couldn't, like, I'm sure plenty of other people would have loved to go. I would have loved to go, but thank you to everyone who did go. And so here we have Sharif and Nicole setting up. I understand it was a fabulous night. Anna Jakey again. And my understanding, this was the darkest skies that they had gotten to see. So it's really great for the members too. Sharif getting ready there, probably looking at the moon. And there's some great pictures that that Sharif took that night. I love this one because I'm not sure if it's a cell phone picture, but it's just, I love how like prominent the stars are, and they're not, sometimes they get lost in like all that crazy background stars that you get sometimes. And here's another great picture that Sharif took from that night, pointing out the Andromeda Galaxy here. I do always love in these wide angle photos when you can spot things like galaxies and star clusters and nebulas. All right, so this was at the Umatilla Elementary event that we did just like a week or two ago. And this was a learning experience for me because, and I promised this girl's not looking at the sun. We were doing some bird watching because the event actually started pretty early, and we didn't really have much to look at for a solid hour and a half. So we had to get creative. So I was able to spot like a crow on a tree to give people an idea of like the power of the telescopes. Big thanks to Eric and Anna again for coming out to this one. And I'm really glad that they did, because he had the brilliant idea of bringing some model planets that we were able to show people before the sun had set. So that kind of gave us something to show folks. I will definitely be considering the time of an event going forward in relationship to when the sun sets and bringing out my solar filter for nights like these. But we did end up having a fabulous night. There, Eric is shining his laser at Orion, and I think people are really happy to have us out. All right, so this is from our last event we just had, the Geneva Dark Sky Night, which was a wild success. We think we had about 150 people, which is pretty good for a dark sky site. And so here, as you can see, the sky is going to be totally awesome. Everyone's setting up. We did some bird watching. These are taken by Derek through his telescope. And we had some bald eagles kind of perching on a distant tree. And these are pretty far away. So it's really, really spectacular that, we were able to get a shot like this. And I think we had like one person who showed up really early to the event. And so hopefully we were able to give them a view like this. This is Aaron and Jerry, who aren't members yet, but Jerry was interested in membership. So this is actually their first time bringing a scope out, which they were having trouble with at home. And fortunately, Derek was able to help them collimate it. And then I was able to show them how to align the finder scope with their eyepiece. So I'm excited that they came out. And we actually had a few other people who weren't members, I think, who were bringing out telescopes for the first time. And we were able to help a few people out. And that's really, really exciting. We love it when non-members or just maybe members with first-time telescopes coming out to public events, we're always willing to help anyone else. So it's really, we hope to see more of these folks again. We didn't get pictures of the other people because they showed up. It's kind of dark already, but here you can see just how great of a night that's going to turn out to be. And again, thank you, Derek, for taking all these awesome pictures. I was busy getting ready to direct traffic. This was a picture Derek took with his cell phone, I believe. Really great crescent mood we had to start out the night. And here's one that I captured of Derek's sky tour. And so you can see the group down here getting started. And this was one exposure. and I wanted to do some stacking, but the tour ended just as I was taking that one. But I did manage to capture this photo, which is stacked from a few 15-second exposures. And this is actually the first time that I did stacking both for the sky and I did stacking for the ground. And that's definitely how I'm going to do it from now on, because the quality on the ground is so much better than how it has been in the past. I usually get like these really grainy pictures. So I'm pretty excited to do some more of these kind of shots. And there's actually a picture that Sharif took that blew me away. She got it from like underneath. I'm going to show you guys in just a minute, but she has like the people at the bottom and then the sky above. It looks really cool. So normally I go through pictures of the volunteers, but Sharif took this phenomenal. Oh, I just realized I'm going over, so I'm going to try and do this as quickly as I can. So hopefully this plays smoothly, but this is a video that Sharif took of the event. I'm going to speed up just a little bit here to save on time, but she got a great shot of the sun. I love this panorama. And the picture that I wanted to show you was, oh, here's some of the Orion Nebula she got. Was phenomenal. Let's see where, oh, here it is. I think it was, oh, this one. I love this picture that she captured with everyone at the bottom. So that's like a huge inspiration for me. I will definitely be trying to get more pictures like that. Okay, so I'm going to try and go super quick because I know we're running out of time. Sorry, guys. I just wanted to mention really fast, Bill Castro did some sidewalk astronomy that same night. He wasn't able to come out, but he was able to do some for his family. So Bill, thank you again, guys. If you do any sort of your own outreach, whether it be sidewalk astronomy or whatever, just, send it over to me via email so that we can include that in our report. We always appreciate that. And that's pretty much it. We have a possible event coming up next month for the Orlando Science Center. So I'm waiting to hear from them on that. And I hope that happens because they always have great events. And we do have another school event at the end of this month, which I'll be sending out very soon a request for. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mauricio. Great. And I really love that picture with the silhouette of the people behind the stars.
Yeah, I love that.
That was really great.
Yeah, she did.
So,
great.
yeah. So anyway, that's it for this month. And hopefully, at the risk of jinxing it, a wrap on our final Zoom only meeting. We will return back to the planetarium next month. And also pre-pandemic, we used to record the program and post it on YouTube. So we plan to do that as well. We're also looking into some ways to live stream the program while we're live at the planetarium. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but recording it and posting it on YouTube like we used to do is certainly not going to be too big a well, we should be able to do that, let's just say. So that's it. Be careful. Look up. Some of you, I hope, will go. Don't forget the Chiefland unofficial Star Party first weekend in April coming up. And see you all next month at the planetarium. Bye.